Richard James was one of those people who made growing old disgracefully an art form.
This is a 65, 70, 75-year-old man, you know, prancing down Fitzroy Street in a frock.
Richard, of course, had a devilish sense of humour.
Fun. He was a fun man.
And sort of greeting the masses like the Queen of England. I mean, it was really quite hilarious.
Let's be realistic, he enjoyed frocking up.
He had energy, he had charisma.
Oh, Richard James was someone who was impossible to miss if he was in a room.
He'd be there very naughtily puffing away on a cigarette and often wacky-backy.
And he says, God grief, he says, the whole world is going gays. And all these people are looking around.
Because he was such a character.
Has had a marriage, come to a different country as a 10-pound bomb, has raised a family, and then come out.
And such a good story to tell, so witty and urbane.
Didn't have any inhibitions, he shared everything with you.
He was not just a thinker, but a doer.
If he wanted to do it, he wanted to do it. He would dive in boots and all.
I think that his Baroness of Balaclava, who was pretty out there.
Not to mention having Gloria Swanson legs. The envy of many of us women.
A wicked sense of humour, you know.
Really took it upon himself to make the world a better place. I'm not blowing smoke up your arse here. I mean, really.
Impossible really to forget.
I've been blessed being loved by Richard and loving him and caring for him. I certainly owed it to him because he changed my life around as well as I changed his. I saw him on many levels. I was very close to him. I was his best friend for 18 years or so. You warmed to Richard. You could just sense his understanding and his kindness or something. There was something very generous about him. He was a very proud and appreciative man. He made you think twice about things. He was a guider. He guided you through life and didn't necessarily dictate, but would always suggest what you could do to better your life. He came from a social working background and I think he never lost that out of his blood. It was always with him. He worked with the Aboriginal community in the 80s and in Fitzroy, and worked with young offenders after that, once they'd been released from prison, and took them on day trips and so forth and got them back into society and guided them through their problems. Orchestrated many things within the community and was there to support anything that was going, like the Artists Collective for a start. He guided young staff from the Port Phillip Housing Association that were a little bit lost in early days as how to get this event together, and he just put it all together for them like a jigsaw puzzle, and they did the rest. You know, he was a real catalyst in that way. He could make things happen. He was a very determined man. He was a clever man. He was really well educated and had a good heart. He was a really full-lived person. He was complete and he was whole. Because, you know, he loved his ballet and his opera and his theatre and his novels, and he read books. Like, you know, he was 84 and he'd read 5 books a week. You know, he was sharp as a tack, no fool.
One of Richard's great strengths was that he could charm the pants off anyone.
He was a grassroots activist, and so I think that you don't just fill out an application form and then a group, you know, gets funding, comes into being and does wonderful things.
Even though he was, you know, so openly gay, or as he insisted, bisexual, he could get on with the rest of the people in the older persons consultative committee and people on the council.
You have to foster it, and he understood that. He understood that it was the interpersonal relationships that keep community organisations alive.
Because he wanted everybody to affiliate and, you know, share their experiences.
Richard really believed in creating a much more inclusive and caring society.
Oh, well, he wanted equality for gays, and I know they're not gays, it's GLBTI, I think.
He was such an asset and such a valued person in Vintage Men, in the Pride March, at the Also Foundation.
He was always thinking up ideas, and I enjoyed that.
You know, he had that fiery intelligence, but the skill of a counsellor, so you could chat to him and you could work things out.
Seniors Week was about to happen, and Richard produced the program at one of our meetings and said, look, there's nothing here I want to go to.
And he tried to get a bit of oomph into the Seniors Festival, because a lot of the Seniors Festival's events didn't really appeal to him.
So he and I got stuck into changing Seniors Week.
He was different, you know, he liked the company of younger people, and he felt like he belonged to the total community.
He was just interested in everything. That the gay community were even more ageist than the straight community. So I understood that if you were a single gay older male, you had Buckley's chance of meeting someone gorgeous or even passable. And that's why he started Vintage Men.
His whole idea with Vintage Men, I think, was to say that slogan, I'm old grey, here to stay, you're not getting rid of me, sort of thing. I'll do drag, I'll do anything to get a message across.
It was a novelty, because as we all know, in the gay world, when you get over a certain age, you just disappear.
So he himself discovered that he was bisexual at quite a late age, after having been married and having had 4 children. To give support for people in the same position, he set up Vintage Men, and to promote that, he decided that to start performing, mostly as the Baroness of Balaclava.
Vintage Men is a group that is set up for gay and bisexual men and their supporters and admirers. So we have no age barriers. We don't actually have any gender barriers. If any women wanted to join, they could join, and they'd be accepted anyway. We don't have any misogynists in Vintage Men.
But it was also a group, I think, to help people come out and feel comfortable about themselves being older.
Vintage Men, we're grey, we're gay, and we're here to stay, really played a very big role in making a more accepting society for older gay men, or bisexual men, as Richard would insist.
He was from that era when if you were gay or a deviant, you were whacked in a mental hospital and given a lobotomy, or you were beaten up on the street. So he understood the kind of real life consequences of being out.
So I think gradually, as younger people are getting older, there is something there, and there's somebody speaking out for older people.
To see these old guys from this group called Vintage Men, who were very kind of vocal and who would lobby for funding and resources, and who were kind of very friendly and would chat to you, was a real novelty. You know, we need to value the aged. We need to value seniors, not just because they're old, but just because they have an experience. We can learn from them. The whole thing about cohesion, I think, is understanding those of seniors. And if you can do that, if young people can do that, then they'll end up with hundreds and hundreds of older friends. And there's nothing more valuable, there is nothing more valuable than a senior as a friend, I can tell you. I mean, I was the beneficiary of it.
So I really miss him, and he just brought warmth and humour to everybody's life.
Oh, it's like a life force is gone, yeah. The committee meetings aren't anywhere as exciting.
Never give up, because he never did. Right to the end, his zest for life was just magnificent.
Well, I guess his contribution was to get people to understand that sexuality is a continuum, that you could be married and have 4 children but then discover that you're gay or bisexual, and that should be part of your life's journey and recognised as that.
The older he got, he said, I belong to the total community. So it wasn't just the gay community or seniors. He felt right across the board, younger people's issues, same-sex matters, so forth, everything. Anything that touched him, you know, he was there for.
I'm not, oh God, I'm showing a bit of cleavage there. Sorry about it. I'm so pleased I shaved my chest.